The Super Bowl is here, and we have who's coming to the ball now. Patriots, Seahawks are going to be your Super Bowl combatants. We'll get into it next on Beyond the Locker Room. Well, we are back, and we have ourselves a Super Bowl matchup. Let's put it this way, and it was a tale of two games. Let's say where one game was a complete opposite to the other game. One had horrible weather. One had pretty much perfect weather. One had scoring. The other one was pretty much a defensive struggle. One was a very entertaining game. The other was a bit of a slog in a lot of ways. But the quarterbacks were fantastic. In one game, quarterbacks were just trying to maintain as best they could considering the conditions. But hey, we have ourselves a Super Bowl matchup, one that we've seen before. I refer to it now as the Redemption Bowl as a Seahawks fan. This is the one we gotta get back, folks, if you're in the mighty Northwest. But we'll start right now. We'll get into it with the AFC. Yes, let's start with the AFC. AFC Championship game. Patriots going to Denver. This was a weird game from the standpoint of, I honestly hate to say it. Sometimes you don't want to say one play really sums up the game. But if there is ever one play that did so, this is the play. I mean, 4th and 1 in the red zone for Denver. You're up 7-0. And you have the backup Stidham out there. And Peyton decides to go for it. Now, before we get in the 4th down play, props to Dan Orlovsky and on Get Up on ESPN. If you have a chance, check it out. I'm sure they have it posted on YouTube. He mentioned a great point, which is the 3rd down play. Where Stidham rolls out. He thinks he has the 1st down, getting to the sideline to reach the chains. Jones, who fell down the play, he's playing the nickel. He falls down the play and hustles his butt. I don't know how he got there to cut off the angle. For him to become short of the yard of the sticks. He ended up being a yard or a little less than a yard short of the sticks, which sets up the 4th and 1 decision by Peyton, who calls a timeout about it. Now, word is from reporting is that if that situation that happened based on our analytics, word is in Denver, they're going for it. But it's interesting they call a timeout because it seems like there was some doubt if he was going to go for it. They come out for the timeout, they run their play. Now, another thing that's interesting from reporting afterwards, Peyton says after the game, the look that they were given by the Patriots was a different look, and they weren't expecting it. It seems like they got fooled by New England, and this is the reason why I had the Patriots to beat them, because I think Vrabel's a very good tactician, always has been. He's played against a lot of teams that are usually much more talented than his, and he makes it a living hell for you if you have to play him, because he's a tactician, man. He'll find every type of trick, every sort of way to find the margins to get the dub. Very good coach. And the fact that they got fooled by this, you would think ego would tell you, okay, you know what, burn the second timeout. It's only the first half, I get it, but I'd rather be safe than sorry and put the points to the board once the look wasn't right. But they still went for it, and we saw what happened. I think it ended up being an interception. It didn't matter. It was a turnover on downs or an interception. It wouldn't matter. The play was snuffed out. And you're sitting there going to yourself okay, you already called a timeout, which showed you had some doubt. You come back, and now you admitted that the look was different, so therefore you didn't know what was going to happen, or at least you felt like you were in trouble. You didn't bother calling a timeout then. You have the backup quarterback. And by the way, you also had to know, and I don't buy this thing, he, as well as the Patriots, probably knew that bad weather was coming later in this game. So therefore, get as many points as you can on the board as early as possible in this type of game. For you not to have a 2-score lead at home with a backup quarterback, I'm sorry, man. And you got to get called out for that. And I know, Sean Payton's a genius, and he loves to make sure you know how smart he is. So that dude I got no love for, so I ain't losing any sleep about him, losing the game, to be honest with you. But, his arrogance is sometimes his worst enemy. And we've seen it a few times with New Orleans, and we see it here, where it's you know what, dude, just kick the 3. At sometimes the analytics is fine in the perfect conditions with your starting quarterback per se, then maybe that's fine. But when you're dealing with a backup with bad weather coming in the championship game, it's a little different. You might want to say, you know what, let me get 3 on the board. And I'm not even picking on Sean Payton about this. Tomlin did the same thing in the Baltimore game a few weeks back, where I'm scratching my head, like, huh? At half, just before half, I'm like, okay, that almost cost them a playoff spot. Based on how they play, they might as well give them the spot to Baltimore anyways, but I digress. Back to Denver. So when you do that now, New England goes down the field, marches down, and then puts 7 on the board themselves, and now you're now in the dogfight. The other thing I found interesting in this game was how both teams handled the conditions. At least it seemed to me that New England seemed to be more prepared for the conditions and how to attack the conditions, depending on if they had the wind with them or the wind against them, especially in that second half. It seemed strange how Denver seemed like they didn't seem to have a clue how to actually attack this based on the weather. They're still running the same plays. It didn't matter if they were with the wind with them or with the wind against them. And that's at least what it seemed to me. And I found it really. And then the last part is like, once again, so small margins. This was an interesting little tidbit. It came out first things first day, actually. Supposedly with the kicker Luss, that missed the, I don't say missed the kick. It got blocked partially or deflected. It was probably a better term. That would have tied the game. Interesting point that came out of that, according to Broussard, first things first, is that the kicker admitted and said, listen, man, we only went back 6 yards to kick the ball. Usually most kickers go back 7 yards, I think. And whatever the case may be, he was a yard short, which when you think about it, and the reason why was because they didn't see in the snow where the hash marks were. But it might have cost them a field goal because what ended up happening was because you're a tad bit closer to the line of scrimmage, the trajectory of the ball is a little lower, which therefore gives the chance for the opponents to potentially get a hand up and bat it down or deflect it, which happened in this case. So it's these small things, small attentions to detail that New England was all over how to deal with the weather conditions, how to manage these moments, and Denver making small but critical mistakes, that cost them a chance to go to the Super Bowl. So New England's in, and we'll get the Steelers on my locker room takes, but I want the Steelers and Steelers Nation to watch what's going on there in Foxborough. They've been out of the mix post Tom Brady for about 4 years, 5 years, and what they do, they got bad quickly. They got themselves what they thought was a top quarterback in the draft. It didn't work out after a couple years. Made the assessment quick by year 3. We out. Went right back to the drawing board. Found themselves a new young quarterback again. And now here we are 2 years in, and they're in the Super Bowl. See how that's done? They got themselves the coach that go with the quarterback. That's how it's done, Steelers. That's how it's done. We'll get to you later on. Over to the NFC. NFC Championship game. Wow. I mean, I said the last time they played each other, it was the game of the season. One of the most fun games I've ever watched for football. It was really an entertaining game. This one was pretty good too, man. Like sometimes they say the sequel's not as good as the original. Fair enough, but this wasn't too far off, man. This wasn't too far off at all, man. This was it's like one of those things where it's like your Godfather or Godfather 2. It was kind of like that. This was something to behold. It had a bit of everything. The quarterbacks were on fire for the most part. I mean, they were great. I did not have on the bingo card, Sam, I see Ghost, Darnold. I'm sorry. I know. I should give more respect. He's my quarterback. And the fact he's like, I was in the Super Bowl, I should give more respect. But I had to throw it out there one more time for the road. But the fact that he outdueled, or at least dueled to a draw to some extent, and maybe outdueled Stafford, that was not on the bingo card. Was not. I figured Seattle would win the game due to the home cooking, as well as the defense being a little more physical with the Rams and getting a few key plays on special teams, which they did, and we'll get to. I did not think, let's put it this way, I did not see this coming where Sam Darnold turned all of a sudden to like next coming to Dan Marino. It's like, what? But hey, man, good on him. It's a really nice story. He's been tossed around all over the league. And he kept coming back, and like, hey, man, good on the dude, man. And it just shows sometimes you get in the right system, the right coach behind you. And that's the case in a lot of sports. When it comes to young players, when you don't have the infrastructure to support around you, a lot of people want to dump on the young players. Say, oh, he sucks, he stinks, he's this, he's that, she's this, she's that. A lot of times the infrastructure, man, and that's actually in life. It doesn't have to be sports. But if you don't have a proper infrastructure with the proper support to actually help that young talent grow, you're going to get bad results. And if you do, you get the results you get now in Seattle. And to some extent, the same thing in New England, Denver, and their examples as well, too. And I think, Seattle is a well put together team across the board. I think overall, if you had to look at all the playoff teams, if I was being honest, now I probably wasn't giving Seattle enough credit because the Sam Darnold factor was really in the back of my mind, and that's why I was taking Philadelphia to some extent. But if you had, because their talent, Philadelphia's talent is as good as anybody's talent. But if you look at Seattle's team, it really is probably the most well-balanced team of all the playoff teams. It's pretty potent on offense. The defense is nothing to play with. And Seattle's always had a reputation for being good on special teams. It's just something about Seattle from way back, going back to Chuck Knox days. It's something about Seattle in special teams. It's always been something that the Seahawks have taken pride in. And it came up big again. It came up big again today. In two circumstances. The first one was obviously, Young and showing in the first half, he had trouble handling the punts. And something with the wind, I don't know what it was, but his eyes weren't seeing the ball. He bobbled one and hit him right in the chest, I think, or his helmet, and he was able to corral it. Unfortunately, in the third quarter, that was not the case in the third quarter, where it fumbled, he stepped back, he tripped, the ball hit him, and next thing you know, boom, off the race, the Seahawks have the ball. Set them up. Next play, Darnold strike in the end zone, touchdown. And at that point, it put us, I put the Seahawks up 24-13. And that gave the breathing room for the Seahawks and put the Rams in a position to be playing comeback and to actually change their play calling because of that. It forced Stafford to have, give up the run a bit more. So Williams is taken out of the game a bit more, which hurt them to some extent. However, Williams seemed he wanted to give it back with the nonsense he was doing on the sidelines, which was no doubt one of the dumbest penalties I've ever seen by a player. And you know why he's the one of the dumbest I've ever seen? Because the referee is almost like in this case we have I don't usually call it grown men children, but honestly, this is the only analogy I can think of. If you have your child and you're trying to tell him, listen, man, I give you one warning, I'm giving you 2 warnings. If you do it again, you're getting grounded or you're getting sent up your room. And the referee was trying to do that to him. He was like, hey, chill out. He woofing on the sidelines with some coach or something. Hey, yo, chill out. He woofing in this case here with a receiver or someone on the sideline. Chill out in this case here. Third time he woofing with Stafford. Yep, flaggo. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? 15 yards. First down. The Rams then, of course, go for the jugular and attack him immediately on the next play with Puka. Touchdown. And they're right back in the game, just like that. It's 24-20. Now I'm just like, are you serious? Are you serious? Are you serious? I couldn't believe it. Because really, that fourth down, with them leading 24-13, they get that there. And how Seattle was moving the ball, that game might be a wrap at that point. This dimwit decides he's going to try to say, hey, look at me. And the rest of the guys were right to get on him on the sidelines. You saw it, when they went back to the sidelines as they were giving him an earful. He didn't want to hear it. Like, get the hell out of here, Willie. He better get himself sorted out for 2 weeks from now. That's all I got to know about that, because that was disgraceful. But overall, Seattle got done. The other big special teams play that I mentioned, there's a couple of them. Underrated moment. 31-27. They run down the clock, and then they punt the ball to LA with about a few seconds left to go, maybe 15, 20 seconds, whatever the case may be. But the key play of that was the punt that was set up beautifully. Just special teams execution, nailed and pinned them down to, I think, the 10-yard line or so. Like that was a thing of beauty. Because it forced them, in this case, they have to go 90 yards now. It wasn't going to get sent out to 25. In this case, it went in the end zone. And it was just perfect. And then it just gave so much more liberty for the defense and so much more limitation for the LA offense at that point. So, once again, these games come down to the margins, man, the small things. And that's the case in every type of playoff series. It doesn't matter what the sport is. It's the margins, man. If the small attention to details. And if you don't have it or you don't do it well enough throughout the season, it will come back to haunt you. And McVay's teams have never been great at special teams. It came back to haunt them. We saw in this case here, same thing goes on the other side of the ledger when it comes to the AFC. Vrabel's very good with the technical and the small tactical stuff. Peyton, in this case here, let some stuff slip away, let some stuff slide, and the Denver team seemed to be a little, loose on some stuff and not having the details right, hash marks, when to place the ball, things of that nature. It costs you a trip to the Super Bowl, man. But anyways, I'm calling this the Redemption Bowl. I'll call this the Redemption Bowl. Let me just give a bit of a sneak preview. I'll get more into detail about it as the week comes into it. I'll just say this much. I think the units that we're going to be watching is going to be Seattle's offense versus New England's defense, in my opinion. I think that is where the battle has to be won by either team for them to be victorious. I'll just leave it at that. I'll get into it more as we get close to the Super Bowl. But this is the Redemption Bowl. I'll say this much. I won't be watching much Super Bowl coverage because I don't want to see that play. As a Seahawks fan, I think scarred me for time. I don't want to watch it. I don't want to look at it anymore. I'm tired of seeing it. I already saw it about 3 times today. I don't need to see it anymore for the rest of the next 2 weeks. So you won't be here. You see me, discuss too much football or, let's put it this way, Super Bowl coverage in that sense. So I'll leave it there, and we'll get back to it when it gets close to gets to the Super Bowl weekend and discuss this more. Locker room take, man. The black and gold, I tell you. I thought I could have a peaceful weekend, and say, okay, maybe later in the week the Steelers would decide who their head coach would be. Oh no, Pittsburgh said, hold my beer, and say, no, we got one for you. We got something for you, B. I can't believe this. I swear, tell me this is like a national nightmare. Tell me when it's over, please. Tell me when it's over. You would think it's like, okay, we'll go the opposite way for Mike Tomlin. Go for a younger guy, maybe go somewhere offensive. Now, fair enough. Defensive guys are in the Super Bowl, so maybe they're back in vogue. Fair enough. But, something like fresh blood, fresh face. We're going to say, okay, you know what? We're going to take our medicine for a year or two and try to actually get the franchise quarterback in the next draft or two. Oh, no. Not the Steelers. Oh, no. No, because the Steelers and the Rooneys think we're one player or one coach away. Unbelievable. Literally, all they did was hire the white Mike Tomlin. I love Mike T, but if you were trying to move on and say, okay, and I think Nick Wright made a great point, an observation, which crossed my mind too. The moment you saw Mike McCarthy was going to get the job, it told me, and as Nick said it today on First Things First, that if anyone's thinking Mike Tomlin got fired, that is definitely now not the case. That was definitely on his own accord that he said, I'm done. Because you literally hired Mike Tomlin again with Mike McCarthy to some extent. Like, are you serious? He's just the offensive version of it. And all that tells me now is, of course, I'm stuck now with this joker now as my quarterback for another year. Unbelievable. I'm just, for a second here, Pittsburgh, I'm just going to point to you a little further north, I think geographically wise, northeast, to a region they call New England, and see what they've done for the last 4 or 5 years. You see? Look what happened. They're back in the Super Bowl. Notice that? See what they've done? You see? To some extent, you see what Seattle's done. A very similar thing. To some extent. So, now there's a veteran, but they moved off their legendary quarterback and say, okay, they got building up. They built it up with draft picks. They built up that defense, and they built it up with the receivers with top picks there, and then they found themselves the quarterback. You see building? See how that works? See how that works? No. Denver, same thing. But no, not Pittsburgh, man. Somehow we feel we're right there on the doorstep, the precipice. Oh gosh, please help me. Anyways, man, that's it for me for this week, man. Please put your like, comment, subscribe, share. Please tell me what you think, about what you think of the Super Bowl matchup, what you think about the Steelers picking Mike McCarthy as their head coach. God help us. Once again, you can find me, I should say, at, of course, on X, Facebook, Blue Sky, and we're newly formed on Instagram. So check me out there. I always have some interesting takes on some things that you might not get here on the podcast, but sometimes on different sports as well too. So check that out there on Instagram. And of course, as I said before, you can find me right here on YouTube. Like, comment, share, and and subscribe as always, guys. Thank you again. Check me out also on Basketball Rewind on the weekly basis. And once again, guys, thanks for the support. Check y'all later. Keep it locked. Peace.